trail recovery there. We made it! Today we're taking our Bronco Everglades on its toughest challenge yet. We're in the high country of Colorado at one of our favorite trails, Red Cone, and we're going to put this Everglades to the test, truly. Now, of course, since Red Cone is a challenging trail, we are going to air down before we start heading up for comfort, but also for traction. Now, right at the beginning of the trail going up Red Cone, we have the gatekeeper obstacle that we have seen several vehicles take some pretty significant damage on if you take the wrong line. In fact, we saw Tacoma ruin its bedside, and that was a pretty well kitted out truck.
It's pretty hard to explain just how technical this trail is, especially for a stock vehicle, so I'm going to demonstrate with these guys that came up while we were changing the spare tire on the Defender. Here we see a Toyota Tacoma, but not just any Toyota Tacoma. This one is fully kitted out with an aftermarket suspension, big tires, and all sorts of accessories. I would estimate that this vehicle has probably $70K plus, including the purchase price, in total value. And you can see he has a really hard time making it up this obstacle and eventually slams his bed into the side of the rock.
So what I'm going to do is immediately go for my front and rear lockers, because I know that they're going to come in handy on this obstacle. And one of my favorite things about the Bronco is that locker engagement. Super easy. This particular Everglades is missing one feature that I wish we had, which is the disconnecting front sway bar. So our articulation on this vehicle isn't going to be every bit of what you can get out of some Bronco models, but still, we've got 35s, we've got front and rear lockers, quite a bit of clearance and quite a bit of underbody protection here on the Everglades. So I know we can make it up and over this feature. Question is, with what level of scraping and what level of effort? But so far, going pretty well. That's not bad. It sounded a little rough, but that's about as easy as you're gonna see any vehicle go up and over that feature. We've seen plenty of vehicles, again, struggle quite a bit. So that was an impressive performance from the Everglades. Red Cone is a trail that we've hit many times in many different vehicles, so we know it pretty well. But anytime we're doing a trail, whether it's one that we know or a new one that we haven't tried out yet, we make sure to use onX Off-Road. That way we can see the difficulty rating, we can see the condition of the trail, where exactly we want to be and where we want to go. So it's one of the best tools that you can use when you're going off-road to make sure that you're staying on track and you know what you're going to come up on. And this trail is absolutely beautiful. It's one of our favorites anywhere in Colorado. So if you're here visiting and you have a vehicle with a reasonable level of capability, coming up to the top of Red Cone is one that we highly recommend. Now, I'm not the only one running Red Cone today. I'm following Tommy up and we're shooting a separate video with our GMC Canyon AT4X on this same trail going up Red Cone. So if you want to check out that video as well, you can see it here on TFL Off-Road. That Canyon doesn't have quite as much clearance as the Bronco does, so I'm happy to be driving this today because on 35s, this Bronco does really well in that department. I still wish that we had the sway bar disconnect, but through this rock garden, I'm going to try and get up and over everything, obviously not using any momentum because there's a few tall rocks here that I don't want to bottom out any harder than necessary on. And as you can probably tell, I don't have any of my lockers engaged yet because the traction control system here on the Bronco works pretty well. It's not strictly necessary through this section, so I won't engage it until it's absolutely necessary, like it was on the gatekeeper obstacle a little bit before. But it's so confidence inspiring being in any Sasquatch package Bronco. You've just got so much clearance. The majority of rocks on a trail that you're probably going to try and drive over, most often you have the clearance to do it, even where a lot of other really capable machines run out. And I love that about this vehicle, especially at this price point, because we got this Everglades for around $55,000, which is not a tiny sum of money, but for the amount of capability, the amount of off-road features you get on this vehicle, in this day and age, it's really not that bad of a deal. We've got a worn winch up front, got, like I said, a lot of underbody protection. We've got good tires with a good amount of rubber. So really happy with this vehicle on this trail. And the rest of this trail is so pretty. We've got a lot to look forward to today, including some other really good obstacles, but some really spectacular views. So I pulled a genius move and got myself into a position, went a little too far to the left and the road started giving way. And now I'm way off to the side of the trail in a pretty stupid looking spot. So Tommy's helping me out setting up the winch while I hold the Bronco in place. And this gives us a reason to use our winch.
We're gonna use the winch on this thing to get us unstuck. Okay, so I was gonna use the canyon, but I want more of a angle pulling case. We're actually gonna winch to one of these trees up here. And then we're gonna use a little bit of a tree saver here to protect it from getting damaged. This big trusty strap here. We'll run a shackle to that and then winch him up. Okay, so we got our soft shackle set up to our winch, and then we just need to get it a little pulled toward the passenger side.
Now we're actually using it to recover the Bronco itself. Not for any intelligent reason, but more just because I was watching what Tommy was doing and didn't notice how far to the left I got before the road started to give way and we got this far over. So now we're gonna get ourselves steered back on course as we use the winch to keep the front end from getting any further in the wrong direction. And just like that, pretty easily back on track. Nothing too difficult. It's just those rocks that are loosely stacked go a ways into the trail. But better safe than sorry.
So quick trail recovery there. Should have brought gloves. Everyone's gonna be upset with me, but we got our tree protected. We got the Bronco recovered. No harm, no foul.
We've got another decent rock crawling section coming up here, which will be a good test of the Bronco. I'm gonna go ahead and kick on our rear locker to begin with, because a few of these boulders we're coming up on are decent size. If I need to kick on the front again, I will, but we'll try it initially with just the rear engaged. Definitely, this is the harder way up this hill. Going to the left is much easier, but we didn't come to Red Cone to make things easy. Came here to challenge these vehicles, like we said, and so far, pretty flying colors with the Bronco. This vehicle's capability is rarely matched by a lot of the trails that we do. And I'd say the same is true for the majority of people that are buying a vehicle like this, because the kinds of trails that you have to find in order to max out the capability of this Bronco are the kinds where you're risking your not so inexpensive vehicle more than most people want. Getting some slip, got a front locker, might as well use it. So we're kicking that on. And you can see the difference. Difference is night and day with the front locker engaged. Just makes everything, it's like a cheat code. It makes everything really easy. Right now we're in a pretty narrow portion of the trail, and we've got a tight corner to get lined up with our next obstacle, which are these alternating pits in the ground that do a really good job of demonstrating the articulation that this Bronco does and doesn't have. As discussed, of course, once again, no front sway bar disconnect. So it's not gonna be the most amount of articulation on this Bronco versus any other, but it's still pretty decent. It's plenty enough to get by, and with the lockers, even if you can't articulate enough to keep all of your tires on the ground, you've got lockers so you can keep traction with the tire that is on the ground and apply torque to it and get up through whatever obstacles you need to get through. So still super capable, no problem here in the Bronco. There's so many obstacles that you watch another vehicle go through and you think, oh, okay, this might be a little bit of a challenge, and then the Bronco just walks right past it. So really impressive. We've got another tight turn and a pretty heavily articulated portion of the trail coming up here. So once I complete this turn, I'm gonna go ahead and kick on the rear locker so that traction is not an issue. Go ahead and do that now. Might as well kick on the front since we're still slipping here. Of every capable 4x4 that you can buy, gotta say, the full-size Bronco has possibly the best locker engagement of any of them. I do at times wish my visibility was a little bit better, because there's times when a lot of the trail ahead of you is blocked by this hood, but this is still such a capable vehicle. And there are plenty of vehicles that are extremely capable without the use of lockers, but a selectable locker on the front and rear, like what you have on the Bronco here, just gives you so much control to be able to do these obstacles as slowly as I'm going up them, which is great because you can make sure that you're picking a line that's not going to have you tilted into a tree, damaging bodywork. When you're in a more expensive vehicle, that level of precision and control really goes a long way. So we made it to the top of Red Cone. The portion of the trail getting up to this point from some of the obstacles that we just did isn't the hardest part of it, but this part of the trail is really cool because it's just beautiful. It's also always windy up here. There's absolutely no way to avoid that. So it makes for some interesting audio on camera, but this is an awesome spot to end up at. From here, we've got a really steep descent down the mountain that takes us into Keystone. Also a really pretty drive. Now, vehicles like this full-size Bronco are not inexpensive to buy, and especially if you're going to use them on some challenging trails like what we're doing today, we highly recommend you check out a Grainger warranty, because Grainger extended warranties use factory parts and factory-trained technicians to make sure that your vehicle stays tip-top even when you're using it at the limits of its capability. Anytime that parts need to be replaced, you can depend on your Grainger warranty to not only get things fixed, but to save money compared to other warranties. So check them out using the link below. So that's just about everything here with the Bronco. No surprise, it didn't really struggle much in getting up the hill. My only real critiques with this vehicle are at times a little difficult to see out the front end, and it's a bit on the wide side. Not the worst offender with either of those critiques, but it is a factor at times on the trail. Otherwise, tons of clearance, tons of traction, great locker engagement, a lot of things that I love about this Bronco on the trail. So, as always, very impressed with this machine. This has been arguably the hardest challenge that we've put this through yet, but we're going to do a lot more with this vehicle coming up very soon. Hopefully get it out to Moab on some more trails, and you'll be seeing plenty more of it shortly. So let me know what you think in the comments below. That's all for this video. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.